Hey, this is Max. I'm back with another CSR2 video. So tonight it's the 570VX for the purpose of Tempest 3 Tier 5. This car will do Tempest 3 Tier 5 very easily when it's fully fusioned out. It does not need absolutely every Stage 6 to do the job either, but it would be preferable to have them all because you will be running much faster. The car starts off with a challenge number of 3.562 for the 0 to 100 and 220 mile per hour speed trap at 685 pp points. As you can see from the dyno, you're well past that if you have full fusion, and the setup is pretty easy, basically dropping down transmission and tire stages to 4, removing the stage 6 engine and turbo. Do not run any intake, and lowering body to stage 3. Now you can also do something opposite, such as increasing intake and taking out body. That's really your call which way you prefer to set the car up. Depending on your fusion status, you may prefer a different way where you have more intake rather than having more body. So either way would work. It doesn't really overall change the car's performance that much. More power definitely won't hurt. Body isn't as critical to this car as you may think. Unlike some other Tier 5 cars, it does help to have a body stage 6, but as you can see, the Evo points did not suffer by switching out body and putting in all the intakes. The car actually does, however, end up slightly slower, but the top speed does increase a little bit as well. So that's a kind of a balancing act. You can do either way as long as you get to 685. The next bracket up is 692. Now, your car will actually hit all the target numbers up to 698, including beating the opponent's quarter mile times without any upgrades from 685. But assuming we want to keep upgrading, we start tossing some body stages in to get to 692, and then eventually to 698. So 691, you get a little bump. If you go back to tuning, you can easily get the car to do the job of 250 miles per hour and a 1.907 0 to 100. There is no 0 to 60 challenges in Tier 5, so you don't have to worry about that number. But if there were, believe me, a 0.978 should do pretty well. So this does not require fine tuning like some cars where you have to tune one way to do speed trap, tune another way to do the 0 to 60. This car basically tuned to its max evo at any given point will easily do the job. And this is actually why this car is a good car to use for Tempest 3. Again, 250, 10.1, all these target numbers are very good. In fact, those are the target numbers you would need for 698 pp, and you've already surpassed it. Now, 698, again, additional upgrades can be thrown on. At this point, you could start tossing in other stage 5s like tire, or you leave tire at stage 4 and you throw in trans, which will help as well. And you can toss another stage of body on there, and that'll put you right near 698. And this transmission stage will help quite a bit with the half mile performance, making sure that you won't have a problem challenging the opponents that you'll be facing in the race 30s to 40. So again, 250 mile per hour can be hit easily. 1.8200 to 100 is well under the target number of 2.342. So the hardest 0 to 100, by the way, it's only a 2.313. So this car basically beats that the whole way. The one thing about doing the 250 mile per hour is if you want to guarantee you do it, when you drive the car, don't use nitrous too quick. Just kind of use it a little bit later. You can use it in third gear rather than second gear where you would normally use it. So this is a second gear use. Okay, this is how you normally drive the car. Basically perfect launch, and then try not to let the needle hit red line, and then deep good shifts, second gear nitrous, blah 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 blah. It'll still hit the 250 mile per hour, but let's say you're short a few fusions and you're just a little bit off on the time for whatever reason. It's harder to hit for you. Increase nitrous, decrease grip, give the car low margin on the mile per hour, and you can hit a higher top speed. And you can push even beyond that top speed simply by running nitrous late. I'll show you right now how that works. So 260 mile per hour actually is the final speed trap, the highest speed trap that you'll have to hit in Tier 5. So really you don't have a whole lot to worry about. So using nitrous in third or fourth, like I just did there, I didn't even try to shift well. I just basically want to activate nitrous late so I can get 261. Obviously, if you want to get beyond 261 even more, there's always the option of lowering the final drive a little bit, and that'll get you 265. So that's extra safety. So that is a 697 setup. Let's go back and look at a 707. Now in 707, you have to hit 250 miles per hour. We're already hitting 260 something. So obviously the upgrades are not critical to the target numbers for speed trap or for the sprints. But here where you want to start considering is you need to get to the point where your car is going to be able to run against Harkness's elemental at the end, right? And he runs something like a 9.1 low or 9.0 something. It's pretty low. So you want to make sure your car is running at least an 8 point something, and you better test drive it to make sure you can do it. Here I'm going to tell you the biggest stage 6s for this car are nitrous, trans, and body. And actually nitrous and trans are the two bigger ones than even body for this car. Trans stage 6 will drop the time substantially from where you would start. So adding the trans stage 6 can bump you down from a 9.9 to basically a 9.4. So it's a pretty useful stage 6. Now, you need to get to 8.8 or better. So the minimum number of stage 6s and the type that you would want would be trans, body, and nitrous. And these three stage 6s with full fusion, will get you into the 8s. Well into the 8s enough that you should be able to do the job of being able to beat. I need to tune it though. It's not just going to get to the 8s magically, right? So you want to tune it to max evo, and that'll get you into the 8 range where you can then have a good chance of beating Harkness. Here we go, 8.9. Now, that's still too close. If you get 8.9 and you're trying to take them on and you screw up a shift or you're just not that good at driving this car, you're still going to lose. So this is where, this is the absolute minimum stage 6, but oh wait, I didn't even put the stage 5 in. I thought it was a little quicker than that. Here, let's put the stage 5 tire in. That now it's a margin that would allow us some safety. So now we're looking at 8.875. Okay, I was wondering why it's 8.99. 8.875, you probably, if you drive it the way I do, and I don't drive this car that well, you probably end up right near 9.0. So still kind of hairy, but at least you have a good chance of taking him down for his car without huge headaches. I let the needle bounce on second to third shift there. That's going to cost me a bit of time, but I think it's enough that I shouldn't be able to have a problem to beat him. 8.972. So I didn't hit dyno. I didn't even hit close to dyno. I'm about a tenth under. I mean, a tenth over, and that's not good. But again, you beat Harkness. That's 3 stage 6s, but those are 3 critical ones. If you don't have those 3, car's going to be a lot slower. Having more is going to be helpful because it increases your margin of error. And the next one, for example, would be something like tire. If you have tire or engine, engine's not as good as tire, but if you have tire, you can now get the car down to a point where it is in the 8.7s. Now you're pretty safe. And if you throw engine in there, I think it gets down to like 8.5 at that point, and you're pretty much set. The worst stage 6 is, of course, turbo and intake. If those are the only 2 you have, don't use this car for Tempest 3 yet. You probably can't even get through the elite time trials with it. So stage 6s, regardless, will be important for that final run. So again, this car needs to have a decent number of stage 6 before you take on Harkness for his car. You want that elemental. It's one of the best tier 5. I shouldn't say best. that I'll explain that later, but it's one of the fastest Tier 5 free to get cars. Free to get. And you don't need a fancy car to get it either. That's the beauty of it. So that is a very fast, free to get Tier 5 car that is good, um, and is very useful in the long run. So you don't want to miss out on that boss car, unlike some of the other ones, which is if you don't get it, oh well. Okay, this one you want to get. All right, so if you were tuning this car at this point to absolute max Evo, you should be able to get something like an 8.3 dyno. You could probably run on a bad day 8.4s. If you're like super shifter guy with magic ninja fingers, you might actually get 8.3s or even better. I don't know what the world record is on this car. I never looked into it because I had no intention of running it maxed and didn't really care about it. But this car is, in my opinion, the best Tier 5 4-star car you can get. Here's why. This is the only Tier 5 4-star car that you can get all Stage 6s for from the dealership by buying and stripping the regular 570S. They actually share Stage 6s. It is also able to be maxed on Fusion doing the same thing. You buy 570S, it gives you McLaren Fusions, put them on here, you're done. This car can be maxed out, one, much quicker than any other car in Tier 5 that's a 4-star. It can be maxed out also without having to spend money to get crates, because you don't need anything from the crates. You can get it all from the dealership. So that's one of the reasons why, in my opinion, it is the best Tier 5 4-star car. The other reason is that this car is extremely versatile. As you can see already, just looking at this Tempest challenge, this car is easily able to accomplish those target numbers. It's one of the faster T5 cars. It's certainly not even close to being the fastest, which is a second quicker, but it is very competitive in that it's in the eights. But that's not really the reason I love this car. Another reason I love this car is because it can be dyno very easily and therefore make it a very viable car in live. You can just do something like this where you adjust the transmission from max evo point, which is here, to the next gear down at the same location, which drops you a few hundred evo points or 100 or so evo points. What that does is it drops your times down. Now when it's fully maxed, you can only hit about an 8.4, so an 8.6 dyno doesn't really help you that much. But if you drop it down even more, you're now looking at 8.8. Well, it'll definitely beat 8.8 when you drive it maxed out like this. You just put it 2.0, you're going to be able to get at least an 8.6 run out of it. Maybe an 8.5 if you're having a great day, okay, or you're really good at shifting. Now, I'm not shifting it very well. I'm just kind of shifting it mediocre for the purpose of just kind of demonstrating how easy it is to beat dyno now. Here you just did an 8.64 on an 8.8 dyno, right? 2/10 is a safe spot to be because it puts you in a competitive position. 8.8 lobby cars can run as low as 8.5 flat. Some of them, which has dyno crushing setups and tunes, can actually run like 7.8s or 8.2s, but those are not the guys that you're going to be facing most of the time. Most of the cars in that lobby will run somewhere around 8.6 to 8.8, with a few of them running 8.5s. So it's not a position where you're not going to be competitive. Your car will be quite competitive, as you can see, if you drive it a little better. So this is another reason why I love this car. And the same dyno beating technique is used when you take on any Tier 5 map race cups. Uh, Restriction cups a little trickier, but again, you can set it up to do it. We just had a cup today, like one of these fusion cups. They're dyno based. If you happen to get the Tier 5 instead of Tier 4 like I did, the VX can do that. The only thing the VX can't do on the map or anything that requires you to have freshness changes, because it has permanent freshness and you cannot change that. Okay, but you could do the one that says you must have your license plate modified. So that trial you can still do. So I love this car. I was very happy when I first started the second account. Within a season or two, this car turned out to be a PC car. So I managed to pull it. I pulled a bunch of parts at that time, and then I finished it off with some 570S's I bought from dealership. So this car has been maxed and is one of the few max cars I have on this account, and it has been doing very well since it was maxed. I did not elite the car because I knew I may need it for Tempest 3, and therefore I left it alone and deleted the Bach Mono instead. The Bach Mono, which was also one of the PC cars, and same with this one was a PC car. So instead, I deleted these two guys because I want to leave this one alone for the purpose of doing Tempest, and I just showed you how easily it can do it. Well, that concludes the video on the 570VX. You know my opinion about this car. It's highly recommended from me that if you pull this car and you're a free-to-play player or you're a relatively new player, definitely max out this car. Unless you already have a bunch of other options, you've come close to maxing, that's better. In which case, of course, you could disregard that. But I think for most players, this car is definitely worth building up if you manage to pull it. And again, as a 4-star, it's a hell of a lot easier to pull this car than those 5-star cars that are in the game. Feel free to leave comments, your thoughts on this, ask me any questions. Please subscribe to the channel. I make these videos regularly. This was a viewer request, so I try to accommodate those. And you get a notification when I put a new video up. And as always, thank you for watching my videos.